You bought this course because you want to develop a video game, and your video game will be full of objects, and these objects are called GameObjects. Maybe you don't have any idea what a GameObject is, but don't worry because we're going to study it in this course. During this course, you're going to realize that there are many things that you don't know. For example, you can add behaviors to a GameObject. So as you go deeper into programming, you're going to face a lot of things that you don't know what they are. And of course, in one course, I can't explain every Unity detail or every C# programming detail. So what should I do when we don't know something? Well, the first thing that we have to do is document ourselves. And one way is to ask a question in this course forum, and I or your classmates will answer your question according to our possibility. Another thing that you can do is when you're in Unity, you can see here, for example, where we have on the top right transform, that we have a help icon here, this question mark. You click on that help icon, for example, if you don't know what a transform is or what parameters to set or how they work, you just click on the icon and you see that the local documentation page is opened because we installed the documentation together with Unity. And here you can see, for example, all the transforms properties like position, rotation, scale, and you see what values you can add. Position of the transform, X, Y, and Z coordinates, etc. So this is one way, by clicking on the help icon that you find in Unity interface for every object that you're gonna use in Unity. So you have the help icon here for transform, for camera, and here, for example, for audio listener, and many other objects that you add to the interface or to an object or a behavior that you add to an object, you're going to have that question mark that is going to help you out with the documentation. Another way of finding help is by going to Unity's documentation that you can find online. So you can type Unity 3D documentation, and here you find the documentation for the latest version, or you can click directly here in the manual and you can switch documentation. If you're working with the 2019 or 2020 or 2020.2, there is the latest version that we see now, you can see the documentation here. Or when you're searching for that information, you can click directly here on Unity scripting reference, where we're gonna see the reference to the programming language, to all the objects that we can use in Unity. Okay, here we can switch to different version. In this case, I'm going to choose the latest 2020.2. And what's the difference between the ordinary documentation and the scripting reference? Well, in the scripting reference, you're going to find all the objects, classes, and references to all the programming part of Unity. For example, we can click here in Unity editor. We can go, for example, to unity.ios and classes, for example, and we can open this class, and here you can see all these classes, properties, methods, and constructor. We find all the information and documentation related to the different classes and that we find in Unity. As I was telling you before, in Unity everything is related to adding behaviors to an object. Like when we're kids and our parents teach us how to behave, the same thing we do in Unity. We add behaviors to objects in order to tell them what to do, how to behave. For example, we can right-click here on the scene tree and create, for example, an empty object. We can rename this object and call it player. This is a game object, and when we click on player, we can see here on the right panel that we have this property that is called transform that is added by default to this game object, but we can add different components and behaviors to this object. For example, we can add a rigid body 2D, and here we can tell this object how to behave, what type of body, what type of material. We can modify its mass, its linear drag, angular drag, and different properties that we call behavior. This is a behavior. So it means that we can add a lot of behaviors from the behaviors list in Unity to any object that we add to our game. So if we search for behavior here in the documentation, you can see behavior. Behaviors are components that can be enabled or disabled, of course, to a game object. We can click on behavior and have more information. And if we click on mono behavior, you can see that mono behavior is the base class from which every Unity script derives. So it means that we have a lot of behaviors that we can find here in the documentation, like the, for example, rigid body. And we can have the documentation here. We can see what properties we can set, what methods we can have access to. This is common to every behavior that we add to an object in our game. The scripting reference will be the place you will visit the most. So online you can find the latest reference to Unity, but you can also have access to this reference from your editor. Okay, from Unity you go to Help, you have Unity Manual, and you also have here scripting reference. For example, if you don't have internet access at that moment, you can open this page also. You can see there is here in my computer, and you can have all the documentation here. Of course, for example, I have it here for this version, and online you will find also the latest documentation for the latest version, but you have access to all these objects and all scripts, classes, and references. And for example, if you're beginning and you want to know what a game object is, you can search for game object. And here we have a list of component game object, control collider head, game object, compare tag, etc. And here you can see the base class that is called game object. You can click on it and you can see the basic properties, methods, and constructors. Of course, we're going to study all these items, what properties are, what is a constructor, public methods, private methods, in the C# programming sections. You not only have access to this documentation, you can also go to different tutorials, community answers. For example, if you have a doubt and you want to look for the same question, maybe the same question has been asked in the community, you can go here and you can click community answers. You can search for your doubts here. You can also click, for example, here in community, you can click on forums. You have different forums here for 2D, for audio and video, for Cinemachine, documentation, editor, and general support, graphics. And with the same account that you use to register in Unity, you can have access here. You can see login. You can use your Unity ID to log in or create an account if you haven't done so before. So once you're here, you can search in the forums. You can click, for example, search forums, and you can filter for categories, searching forums. You can put your keyword here. For example, if you write rigid body 2D and then click search, you have a lot of questions that have been asked. For example, how to make rigid body 2D move constantly. Then you can click on that question and you can read through the answers, and you can maybe copy part of the code and test it in Unity. And here on top you can see all the breadcrumb, forums, Unity community discussion, and the section is scripting. Okay, you can click on scripting and you can see the questions and how many views, how many replies, last message. Okay, you can see a lot. For example, this one a minute ago, so you can click here and take a look at the latest answers and questions published in the forum. And so if you don't find any answers to your question or to your doubt, if you didn't find anything in the documentation, you can post your question here and share your doubts with the community. Okay, I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.